Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Claire, I'm 42, and I used to believe love could outlast erosion. That if you built it right, on shared values, on laughter, on trust, it could weather anything. But I've come to realize that love doesn't always end in shouts or betrayals. Sometimes, it just starves quietly. It's been eating me up, this guilt. This hollow, gnawing guilt that clings to the corners of everything I do. I miss my daughter. She still speaks to him. Still calls him dad like he's the safer parent, the steady one. And maybe he is. Maybe that's the part that hurts most. I told him I missed the days when men were men. And I know how that sounds, vague, weighted, a little sharp around the edges. But it wasn't meant to be cruel. I didn't mean, go hunt a bear or fix the damn sink without Googling it. I meant, I missed being led. Not dominated, not silenced, just held in a kind of safety I used to associate with masculinity. He looked at me like I'd spoken another language. Like I'd insulted him. Then he left. And maybe, in his mind, that was me throwing the first punch. Back when we met, Greg had this quiet confidence that made me lean in. I was 27, bartending in college, and he ordered a whiskey like he was already someone's dad, classic, steady, capable. He built things with his hands, fixed his own brakes, grew basil on the windowsill. And when he kissed me, he always used both hands, like he needed to anchor me to something. It made me feel desired in a way that went deeper than lust. For years, that was our rhythm. We had Sunday mornings in bed, tea-stained pillows, the smell of him, wood and citrus, lingering in my clothes. He'd wrap an arm around me at night, his hand always searching out my waist. It was a kind of quiet, unspoken intimacy. Not fireworks, but a campfire. Something that warmed you slow and steady. But then, somewhere in the thick of jobs, raising a daughter, aging parents, and trying not to screw it all up, we started turning inward. Not at the same time, of course. First him, then me. Or maybe it was both of us, a slow mutual drifting that didn't feel like drowning until we looked up and realized we were on different shores. He became softer, not in the way men are accused of, but truly gentler. More withdrawn. He stopped initiating sex. Said he was tired. That his head was full. That he didn't feel like a man anymore. And I tried. I tried so hard to reassure him. To say it wasn't about muscles or money. I just needed to feel chosen. To feel that same hunger in his eyes when I walked across the room. There were moments. Once, last spring, I came home from a work trip. He met me at the door, wrapped his arms around me, and kissed me hard. I remember thinking, there he is. My stomach flipped, and I let myself sink into it. But the next morning, he was quiet again, distant. I asked if I'd done something wrong. He said, no, I just needed to feel close to you for a minute. Like it was a hit of something he didn't want to get addicted to again. After that, the affection felt practiced. His kisses were soft but hesitant. His hands on my back felt like they were checking for something. Even our cuddling changed. He'd hold me, but I could feel the tension in his shoulders, like he was fulfilling a duty he didn't quite understand anymore. I'd reach for his hand at dinner, and sometimes he'd flinch, just slightly, but enough to make me notice. And the sex? It dwindled into absence. No arguments about it. No slamming doors. Just a quiet vacancy. Like waiting in a room that no one admits is empty. The moment I knew something had really changed was so unremarkable it hurts to recall. We were watching a show on the couch. I leaned my head on his shoulder, like I always had. He didn't move. Didn't stiffen, didn't lean in. Just stayed still. I realized, after a few minutes, that I could feel his heartbeat, but not because I was pressed against him. It was because I was counting it. Trying to find proof he still felt something when I touched him. That night, I stared at the ceiling while he snored softly beside me, and I whispered it to the dark, I miss the days when men were men. Greg was a nurse, one of the best in his unit, from what I'd heard. He had a quiet, competent way with people that disarmed even the most stubborn patients. In the early years, I used to brag about it, he takes care of strangers better than I take care of myself. But lately, it had begun to feel like he gave all his tenderness away to everyone but me. He'd come home bone-tired after a 12-hour shift, smelling like antiseptic and warm sweat, and collapse on the couch without changing out of his scrubs. I'd bring him a glass of water or rub his feet, anything to show I still wanted to be close, but his eyes were always somewhere else. One night, I lit candles in the bedroom. Slipped into the black slip he used to like, thin straps, lace edges, the one that had once made him reach for me before I'd even crossed the room. I'd washed my hair, turned down the lights, and waited. He walked in, saw me, and smiled. A soft, grateful smile. The kind someone gives you when you make their coffee just right. He kissed me gently. His hands found my hips, but not with urgency, more like habit. I kissed him back, trying to meet him halfway, trying to stir something. But I could feel it, the hesitancy. The way he touched me like I was a favorite book he didn't have time to read. After a few minutes, I pulled away. Do you want this? I asked. He blinked, confused. Of course. You look beautiful. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. That's not what I asked. He sighed. Sat beside me. Claire. I'm just tired. It's been a brutal week. 4 code blues. A kid died in the PICU yesterday. I don't know how to flip that switch right now. I nodded, because I got it. I really did. But the ache in my chest didn't leave. It's not about sex, I whispered. It's about feeling like you want to connect. Like there's still something between us besides bills and laundry and parenting schedules. Greg put a hand on my back. I do want to connect. This is me trying. But it didn't feel like trying. It felt like pacifying. Like he was saying what he thought I needed to hear to keep things calm. Over the next few weeks, he tried harder, but in all the wrong ways. He'd brush my shoulder in the kitchen, kiss the top of my head while I was working. Once, he squeezed my thigh under the table during dinner with our daughter and I flinched, more from surprise than anything else. We were living in mismatched love languages. I needed words. I needed him to ask, "Are you okay?" and mean it. I needed him to stay in the hard conversations instead of escaping into silence. He thought touching my arm, pressing a hand to the small of my back, or cuddling on the couch was enough. And maybe, for a while, it had been. But not now. Not when everything in me felt fragile and unnamed. Then came the night of the argument, the one I keep replaying. We were cleaning up after dinner, and I mentioned the possibility of taking a weekend trip by myself. Just to clear my head. He frowned. A trip? Alone? I shrugged. I need to breathe, Greg. I need to remember who I am without a schedule or a to-do list. He stiffened. Are you saying I'm suffocating you? No, I said, too quickly. I'm saying I feel invisible. That's when he touched me. Reached for my waist, tried to pull me in, his lips on my neck. Like passion could overwrite what hadn't been spoken in months. I stepped back. He looked stunned. What are you doing? I can't be touched like this right now, I said. Not without feeling seen first. He stared at me for a long beat. I am trying to see you, Claire. But you keep moving the finish line. And maybe I was. Maybe I'd been shifting what I needed faster than he could keep up. But I also knew this: love that only lives in gestures and not in presence starts to feel like performance. And I was tired of clapping for something that no longer reached me. It started happening in the small, quiet ways. Not dramatic. Not sudden. Just these subtle recoils, like my body had started building its own boundaries before I'd even had the courage to admit I needed them. One Saturday morning, Greg came up behind me while I was loading the dishwasher and gave my butt a light slap, the playful kind he used to do all the time in our early years. Back then, I'd grin, swat him back, pull him in for a kiss. It had been part of our language. This time, I stiffened. He immediately pulled his hand back, trying to laugh it off. Too soon? I forced a chuckle, but it came out dry. Maybe just, not while I'm elbow-deep in dishes. Noted, he said lightly, but I saw the flicker of hurt in his eyes. And I hated that I'd caused it, hated that something so simple now felt invasive. But I didn't know how to explain that my skin felt like it was carrying too much weight, too many expectations. That touch, even well-meaning, had started to feel like another request I couldn't meet. That night in bed, he tried again, gentler this time. He turned toward me under the covers, brushed the hair from my face, and kissed me softly. His thumb traced the curve of my jaw, then drifted down to my collarbone. I didn't flinch. I didn't push him away. I just floated outside of myself. I kept kissing him back, but it felt automatic, like something my body remembered how to do, even if my heart wasn't participating. My breath quickened, but not from desire. From pressure. From trying to figure out what I should be feeling. He pulled me closer, his hand sliding to my hip. That's when something inside me shrank. I pulled back just enough to shift on the pillow. Not a rejection, not fully. Just enough space to breathe. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just tired." He nodded and turned onto his back. We lay there in silence. The fan hummed softly. I stared at the ceiling and felt like the gap between us had become a third person in the bed, quiet, unwelcome, undeniable. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing had happened. Eggs, toast, coffee. He wrapped his arms around me from behind while I stood at the stove, resting his chin on my shoulder. "I love you," he said, like a lifeline. I froze for half a second before responding. "I love you too." And I did. I still do. But it wasn't a love I knew how to give him anymore. Not in the way he needed. I wanted to want him. I wanted to reach for him the way I used to feel that electric thrum in my chest when his hand found the small of my back or when our legs tangled under the sheets. But now, every time he touched me, I had to scan myself. Is this okay? Does this feel good? Am I just going through the motions? It was exhausting. Later that week, after dinner, he tried again. We were cleaning up and he cornered me playfully by the fridge, hands on either side of my waist, eyes warm. "I miss this," he said. "Us being close." I nodded but couldn't meet his gaze. He leaned in for a kiss, and I let him. Our lips touched, but the spark was gone, replaced with a dull ache of guilt. As he pulled back, searching my face, I turned away, fumbling for something in the fridge I didn't need. In my head, the question screamed louder than I'd ever admit aloud: why does everything have to turn into sex? We were sitting at the dinner table. Just the two of us. Nora had gone to her friend Ava's for the weekend, and I'd thought, stupidly, that a quiet night alone might feel like it used to. We even made an effort: roasted chicken, real wine glasses, a candle that hadn't been lit since our anniversary last year. Greg carved the chicken like he always did, steady hands, even slices. He poured my wine before his own. Every gesture was right. Perfect, even. And still, I felt like I couldn't breathe. He smiled at me across the table. You know, it's kind of nice. Just us. I nodded, pushing green beans around my plate. Yeah. He waited a beat. You okay? I took a sip of wine and smiled too quickly. He didn't believe me. Claire. Talk to me. Something inside me snapped. Not all at once, more like a hairline crack that suddenly spiderwebbed through everything. I put my fork down and looked at him, really looked at him. His tired eyes. His hands. The faint gray at his temples that hadn't been there 5 years ago. He was a good man. He was. And yet I felt so profoundly lonely sitting across from him, I wanted to scream. I don't know how to talk to you anymore, I said. He blinked, fork still halfway to his mouth. What? This, I motioned vaguely between us, feels fake. Like we're playing house. Like we're pretending we're still, us. His jaw clenched, but his voice stayed calm. I'm trying, Claire. I thought this dinner might help. Help what? My voice was rising now, and I hated it. Help you slide a hand up my thigh after dessert and call that intimacy? His eyes darkened. Jesus. That's not fair. Isn't it? I laughed bitterly. You want closeness, but only if it leads to sex. You want affection, but only if it looks like something out of a rom-com. I try to talk to you and you shut down. But God forbid I don't melt the second you kiss my neck. Greg pushed his plate back, hard. So what do you want from me, Claire? Huh? Spell it out. Because I'm showing up. I'm here. I'm trying to love you the only way I know how, and all I get is cold shoulders and half smiles. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. My hands were trembling. I want to feel safe again. I want to feel like I can fall apart without you taking it personally. Like I can miss the version of you who used to lead, who used to carry things, not just groceries, not just our kid to bed, but me. That stopped him. His whole face changed. So what, he said, voice lower now. You want some old school man who fixes everything and never cries? That's what this is about. I hesitated, because it wasn't that simple. And yet, somewhere beneath all the hurt and confusion, I said it. I miss the days when men were men. The silence that followed could have broken glass. He stood slowly, jaw tight. Wow. He gave a half laugh, but there was nothing amused in it. That's what you think of me now? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was closing, and my eyes burned. He walked past me, picked up his keys, and left without another word. The door shut so softly it felt like a whisper. I sank to the kitchen floor and let the tears come. They weren't dramatic sobs. Just silent, exhausted weeping, the kind that comes when you've run out of words but your body still needs to grieve something. I thought about what I'd said. About how I'd weaponized a feeling I hadn't even fully unpacked. I miss the days when men were men. It wasn't even about gender. It wasn't about strength or stoicism. It was about feeling protected. Desired. Chosen. I'd wanted to be held, not just physically, but emotionally. And I hadn't known how to ask without making him feel like he wasn't enough. Now he was gone, and all I could feel was the sick thrum of regret. What had I even meant by it? What had I hoped he would do, stand taller? Speak louder? Be something he wasn't just so I could feel something I hadn't felt in years? All I knew was that he'd left. Not in rage. Not in heartbreak. Just in quiet defeat. And I had no idea how to get him back. It's been 3 weeks. Greg comes by every other day to pick Nora up from school, or to drop off something she left at his new apartment. We speak in short, functional sentences. Her sneakers are by the door, she already had dinner, I'll get her Sunday night, And it's always with that stiff politeness that makes strangers sound civil. We've become strangers. He doesn't look at me directly anymore. His eyes linger around me, not on me. Sometimes I catch him glancing, quick and unguarded, but he always pulls back. Like it hurts. Like he can't afford to linger. And the thing is, I miss him. I miss his terrible morning breath and the way he'd hum while making coffee. I miss his laugh, God, that low, half-wheezing laugh he only did when something really got him. I even miss his awful hospital stories that used to make me gag over dinner. I didn't think I would. At first, I felt justified. Angry. Certain that he was the one who pulled away first, and I had only followed. But now I just feel empty. Last Tuesday, I stood behind the curtain in the hallway when he came by. I watched him tie Nora's shoes, his hand steady, voice patient, her little face tilted up to him like he hung the moon. "Missed you this week, Peanut," he said, smoothing her hair. "Me too, Daddy." It broke me. Not because she loved him, I wanted that. But because I couldn't remember the last time he'd looked at me with that kind of warmth. That kind of ease. We'd been married 11 years. And now we couldn't make it through a 30-second exchange without feeling like we were walking on glass. Part of me wanted to text him. To ask him to come over. To say, let's talk. Really talk. But I didn't know what I'd say if he came. I still didn't know what I wanted. I kept replaying that dinner night over and over, my voice sharp, his face stunned. I miss the days when men were men. It sounded cruel now, out of context. It was cruel. I hadn't meant he wasn't a man. I meant I missed when he used to make me feel like a woman. Held, wanted, protected. But how do you explain that to someone whose masculinity you just, unknowingly, crushed? The last time he came by, he handed Nora her backpack and lingered for a second longer than usual. Our eyes met, just briefly. "You okay?" he asked, voice quiet. I nodded too fast. "Yeah." "You?" He hesitated. "Trying." Then he turned and left. No bitterness. Just that calm, even tone he used at the hospital, with patients who were terminal and still asking about treatment. I stood at the window as he pulled out of the driveway. His car disappeared around the corner, and I realized how long it had been since I'd seen him drive away and not known when he was coming back. I ached for the version of us that used to fit. The couple who stayed up watching dumb movies and fell asleep mid-conversation. The man who used to pull me into his chest and say, "I've got you," and mean it. But somewhere along the line, I stopped letting him. And he stopped trying. The silence now isn't loud. It's soft. Like fog. But it's thick enough to get lost in. I sat at the edge of our bed that night, staring at the drawer where he used to keep his watch, and I asked myself the question I'd been avoiding. Do I still want this? Not the memory. Not the guilt. Not the longing. Him. Us. This version, broken and all. The answer didn't come easily. But I knew I had to find it soon. Before missing him turned permanent. It was a Thursday when I finally asked him to come inside. He'd just dropped Nora off after her orthodontist appointment. She bounced past him into the house with her usual flurry of limbs and backpack straps. He stood at the door, not stepping in, not stepping back. We hovered there for a moment, strangers again, wearing familiar faces. "Do you want to come in?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. Just for a minute. We sat on opposite ends of the couch like two people waiting for a verdict. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around myself. He rubbed his palms together like they itched. The silence between us wasn't cruel, it was just tired. "I've been thinking," I started. "Me too," he said, eyes on the floor. I took a breath. About what I said that night. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I wasn't trying to say you weren't enough. I paused, swallowing the emotion that rose too fast. I miss feeling held. Safe. Desired. I miss being able to just be, without every touch feeling like a cue. His jaw twitched. Not in anger, more like restraint. He finally looked at me. I know I messed things up too. I started walking on eggshells. I stopped asking real questions. And I guess I kept hoping if I kissed you the right way, it'd all just click again. We both laughed, quietly. Sadly. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. But I don't think we're in the same place anymore, Claire. I think we've been trying to find each other in versions of ourselves that don't exist now. Something inside me dropped. I knew it was coming, but it still hit like a slow punch. I don't hate you, I said. I know. I still care about you. I still care about you too. He looked up. But it's not enough to keep pretending. We sat in silence again. Nora's laughter drifted faintly from her room upstairs. He stood slowly, smoothing his jeans. I walked him to the door. And before he stepped out, I touched his arm. Wait, I said. He turned. And I wrapped my arms around him. He held me back. Tightly. His cheek resting on the top of my head. We stayed there longer than made sense, no kiss, no promises. Just a body remembering another. When we let go, neither of us said goodbye. He walked to his car, and I didn't watch him leave this time. Now, Nora still calls him every night before bed. He's gentle with her, steady. I listen from the hallway, smiling and aching all at once. She talks to him like he never left. I haven't talked to him in weeks. And somehow, I think that's how it has to be. My name is Claire. I'm 38. And sometimes I still wake up and reach for someone who's no longer in my bed. It's not that I want him back. At least, not exactly. I think what I really want is a version of us that never fractured. A timeline where we both noticed the slow unraveling sooner, and fought for each other before it became fighting with each other. But that's not how life works. You don't get to rewind. You only get what you were brave enough to name at the time. And I wasn't brave. I was tired. I think what I've learned, what I am learning, is that intimacy isn't something you can fake, and it's not something you can force. You can't guilt your way into closeness or shame someone into tenderness. Believe me, I tried both, in 100 different ways. I smiled through touches that made my stomach twist. I said I love you on autopilot, hoping my heart would eventually catch up to the words. But desire, real desire, comes from feeling seen. And I hadn't felt seen in years. The hard part? Neither had he. We were both waiting to be rescued by the other. Both quietly wondering, why won't you love me the way I need you to? But we never asked out loud. We just kept misreading the silences, mistaking stillness for disinterest, touch for demand, sex for proof. And then one day, I said something I didn't even fully mean. I said I missed the days when men were men. What I meant was, I missed feeling wanted without negotiation. I missed being with someone who knew me, not just physically, but emotionally. Who could hold space for my sadness without trying to fix it, who could touch me without it being a transaction. I wanted to be someone's softness again. But Greg heard something else. He heard, "You're not enough." And maybe, underneath it all, that was what I was saying, because I hadn't been enough for him either. There's this myth we cling to, that longevity equals success. That if you stay married, you win. If you separate, you fail. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think the real failure is silence. It's letting the person next to you disappear by inches, while you're too scared or too proud to say, I miss you, and I don't know how to find you. Greg and I didn't end in rage. We didn't burn out in some dramatic blaze. We drifted, like a boat coming untethered, so slowly we didn't realize we'd floated miles apart until the land was gone. And I still grieve that. I still miss his laugh. I miss the smell of his skin after a shower. I miss the weight of his hand on my thigh when we'd watch movies. But I also know that missing someone and needing them are not the same thing. I needed space to hear myself again. To understand the difference between touch that soothed and touch that smothered. Between sex that reconnected and sex that filled silence. Now, I sleep alone most nights. Our daughter still talks to him like he's her favorite person in the world, and I'm glad. She deserves that version of him. And maybe I did too, once. But here's what I know now: desire doesn't begin in the body. It begins in the mind. In trust. In safety. In being known. And if I ever fall in love again, if I ever let someone that close, I hope I remember this: that love isn't proved by endurance. It's proved by presence. By showing up. Softly. Consistently. Without needing to be asked. And if someone can't do that, it doesn't mean they're not a good person. It just means they're not my person anymore. And that's okay. Some goodbyes don't echo with anger. Some just leave behind a quiet you finally have the strength to sit with.